You're very welcome to a new series of the podcast, Being Times and Materials. Lovely to kick it off with special guest Allison Warner, who has worked exclusively with construction and trade businesses. She formed a specialist division for this sector with Build and Grow in 2015, as well as Build Systems. We had a good chat with Allison and we digged into 5 key areas that a lot of trade and construction business owners have. That being, why am I not making enough money? How can I get more business? Where and how can I find good people? How can I create stronger, more reliable team? And how can I have a better work-life balance? All areas that we as business owners have concerns, and areas that we certainly want to improve on. So it was great to sit down with Allison and get a better understanding of the type of strategies that she employs to all her clients. So I hope you do get some value from my chat with Allison Warner. Allison, great to have you here. How are you?
I'm really good. Thanks, Kieran.
I like to kick these things off with a little bit of an understanding about the person, the background, how we ended up in construction. So I was having a little look around your LinkedIn just before we got on, and I seen you actually, your background stems back to working with Starbucks. And can you talk a bit about that? Like what is your background and how did you end up working with construction companies?
Yeah, I know, because it's a bit random, isn't it? So my background is predominantly retail and hospitality. I cut my teeth with Pizza Hut back in the day, when actually it was a much bigger company and quite well respected back then. Not that it isn't now, but it was certainly well renowned for its management training. And so I was with them for about 7 years, and then I joined Starbucks when they'd recently come to the UK, and they had about 90 stores when I joined, and then was with them for a further 8 years. So predominantly my background is operational. I was an area manager for most of that time, but I did spend a short time working in HR, looking after resourcing for the UK and Ireland for Starbucks when we were opening 3 stores a week. So pretty crazy. In fact, I remember coming to Ireland. That was my first assignment, to get it off the ground in Dublin, and then a little bit of time at Pizza Express as well, looking after their resourcing. So how I ended up going from that into construction and trades is kind of by accident, really. I was made redundant from Starbucks when the financial crisis hit. There was no need for a recruitment department because we went from opening 100 stores a year to closing 60. And I set up Evolve and Grow really as just a general coach. And I was working with my network, and then I came across an organization called BNI. Don't know if you know of them, networking group.
Them well, yeah.
And I joined my local one, and that took me down this whole different route of working with small businesses, and I absolutely loved it. You know, for lots of reasons. I think main reason is you get to see the fruits of your labor. So obviously a business owner is in a position to make a decision on the spot very quickly, and you get to see the impact of that. Whereas working with a larger company, it's you just don't get that same feedback.
And was that the attraction initially, to go like sort of after the small business into that sort of coaching role, and then you sort of looked at construction, or was it,
Yeah, I mean, both happened by accident. So I joined BNI and I was looking for introductions to other large companies, but I ended up, at one point I was coaching half the group, so I ended up with them as clients, which was never my intention. And then through that I worked with so many different professions, osteopaths, web designers, financial advisors, IT companies, and in amongst that were construction and trades. But I realized that it was those sorts of businesses that I enjoyed working with the most, and B, seemed to be getting the better results. And I thought, okay, this is interesting. I wonder why this is. And I realized that sector, often marketing wasn't their challenge. So they might think it is, they might think they need more sales, but actually when you lift the bonnet of the business, so to speak, you generally find, if they're good at what they do, there's no end of shortage of business. But what they often don't have in place are the structures and systems to take advantage of the demand. So that falls into two things, either the people resources or the financial systems, or just the systems to automate and make things run smoother on a daily basis. And so that's kind of my strength, I guess, organization and getting structures in place. So I was most suited as a business coach, I think, to that sector. Yeah, and I looked around, there was no one doing it in the UK at that time. And
when you analyze, say, the construction sector and the trades that you work with, and you compare them to, say, hospitality and retail that you've been working in and had an experience in, was that the biggest challenge and the big differences, the big standout is just the general organization of the companies, the structures within the companies?
Yes, I guess there's actually a lot of similarities between the two as well. But if you look at the likes of Pizza Hut and Starbucks, Pizza Express, they've all started out in the same way. They've all started out as a small business, and then they've grown. And what's enabled them to grow is essentially the systems, either to give them the right information to make the right decisions about their business, or just as simple as actually having their standards written down, how they want things to be done. Because one of the biggest fears, I think, when you have your own business, that's not just in the trade industry, it's that letting go, isn't it? It's like, oh, I'm going to take somebody on and, you know, they might not do it to my standard and they're going to destroy my business. I've got a really good reputation and my customers like me. If I hand it off to Johnny, is he going to go and do it the way I want it to be done? And so a lot of that is about having it written down, having systems in place to check on the quality of work and to feed back. And that's the similarities, definitely.
It's interesting. I want to dig into Evolve, and especially something that I came across on your LinkedIn. But I also, when I was doing some homework, I realized that you published a book as well, and the book being titled "Build and Grow: How to Go from Tradesperson to Managing Director in the Construction Trades Industry." A bestseller, I believe, as well. So congratulations, first of all, on that.
You.
What was the inspiration behind the book? Like, what was your thinking at that time? What were you trying to achieve?
Oh, lots of things. So I think and there's lots of things that came out of it that I perhaps wasn't aware of when I started to write the book. So I think for anybody writing a book that runs a business, it's a great way of getting everything out of your head and into a structure so that you can actually articulate what it is that you do. And I think that's the biggest benefit. I'm sure there's a lot of people that have bought the book, have got value from it and never have become a client, and that's fine. So, able to help more people, able to communicate what it is that we do, because I think it's quite difficult sometimes to get across what you're actually doing as a business coach, and there's no better way than to have it in a book, because they've already educated themselves by the time they've got in touch. They understand it, so they're almost halfway there. But then it's also a fantastic way of attracting the right partners as well. It's just a way of being able to help more people and to grow and scale the business. I'd recommend it to anybody. Everyone's got a book in them.
Yeah, we've actually heard that before. We've had a couple of people on the podcast that have done that and sat down and took some time out to actually go and write a book. And that comes up a lot, actually, that they recommend it. Not from, I suppose, the value that's going to give others. That's obviously what they initially set out to do. But they find that the feedback I've been given is that you actually take away a lot yourself about challenges and questions you've got to ask yourself in order to deliver that content. Yeah. Was that a similar experience for yourself?
Very much, and it's how the build system was born, because I had to get what it was I was doing into some kind of methodology. And by taking that step back, I realized, actually there is a kind of a process I'm following. We always start with the vision. Where is it that you want to be 3 years from now? We always start with the numbers. Really, really crucial. Because by looking at their numbers straight away, I can tell if the business has got opportunity. Generally, 99% of the time it has, to either grow sales or grow profits or both. And then it becomes easier for the prospective client to understand when you put it into a framework such as Build, which we've now trademarked. So
Interesting. So the business Evolve and Grow set it up in 2009, and I picked out. I'm going to brand them 5 stars, right? We'll go with 5 stars that I picked up off your LinkedIn, and then 5 stars were, why am I not making enough money? These are obviously challenges that companies will come to you with. Why am I not making enough money? So if I put myself back in my shoes at that time, yes, I would have had that fear and concern. How can I get more business? Yes, I definitely would have been lacking in the sales and marketing side of things. That would have been a question. Where and how can I find good people? That's interesting. I'm looking forward to getting into that one. How can I create a stronger, more reliable team? I'm thinking that's culture, but I'm looking forward to hearing your thoughts on that. And then how can I create a better work-life balance? I've got my own, really. I love that subject, actually. So I'm looking forward to talking about that. So of these 5 stars, okay, having worked with many construction companies and businesses, what, in your opinion, would be the biggest barrier to a company making more money?
Without a doubt, recruitment, the people. Because the rest of them, it has to be either training somebody to understand something, for example, their numbers, or it tends to be implementing a system or training them in a time management technique. It's all tangible. But people, and I used to say this at Starbucks to my managers, it's not like when the coffee machine breaks down, you go and get the engineer. We're all different. So what one technique will work with one person won't work with the other. You have to be, if you're managing people, you have to be sometimes the disciplinarian, sometimes the motivator, sometimes the counselor, sometimes the psychologist. You have to wear all of these different hats to get the best out of your people, to know who is the right person for your business. And then once you have them, how do you then keep them motivated and keep them performing? So without a doubt, the people, I always, that's one of the questions I ask prospective clients at, where do you want to get to? And what do you think are the 3 challenges in your way? And I kind of know who's got the most awareness, I guess. If they mention people at the forefront, I think, okay, well, you're aware of it, you're on track.
Okay, that's interesting. So let me skip the process here slightly and go down to, so how can we find good people?
So I don't have a pink magic wand, unfortunately. I always say that. So what I've done is essentially taken the recruitment process that I put in place at Starbucks and Pizza Express, and that we kind of had at Pizza Hut as well. And I've just taken it into the world of construction and trade. So the simple answer to that is get the job advert right, cast it out to as many people as possible. So get on all of the job boards, and we partner with a company that does that at a reduced price. Social media, and ask your network. So if you think of a funnel, get as many people in the top. What tends to happen in this industry is the person feels, oh my God, I need somebody. They start asking around, and somebody gets recommended, and they at best meet them for a coffee and a chat. At worst, just put them straight on the tools and fingers crossed. And sometimes they work out, sometimes they don't. Invariably they don't. So what we want to do is have the job advert worded correctly so it attracts the right people. We put it everywhere so that we widen the net and get loads of people in the funnel, so to speak. And then we have a really good sifting system, starting with telephone interview. If it's an office position, psychometric testing. If it's a trade position, you'd go straight to final interview. Sounds very corporate, and it kind of is, but I give the person the tools, and then you use them in a way that feels authentic for you. But it's asking proper structured questions, giving examples. So for example, tell me about a time when you dealt with a challenging customer. What was the issue? How did you deal with it? Blah, blah, blah. References. So a lot of people, and this is across all industries, not just this one, they relax at this point because they're like, oh, thank God I found somebody. And they forget the importance of checking references. And often, again, this happens in big companies. They forget the importance of then inducting them properly into the role. So that's what I mean by the whole recruitment process.
This is interesting. Yeah. This is really interesting because, okay, I served my time in the Irish market very soon after I qualified, went to Australia, and I seen the differences culturally in how trades were treated. And when I say treated, it was a job on demand. I left here as a carpenter where work couldn't be found. Okay, we're in a bad recession, and I went there where carpentry was on demand. Right, and it was so different. And I remember at the time when I left, I was trying to get obviously employed in Ireland before I left, and the structure there was pretty much come in and let's have a look at you, right? Sort of approach, as in, we'll give you the day and we'll make a decision probably at the end of the day. So they're very much making a decision based on my skill sets, which I think makes sense because they can judge me after a day whether I'm capable of doing the job. When I went to Australia, I went through exactly what you were sort of describing there. I felt it to be a very corporate interview process. And by the end of it, I was, most people could get their way through that by talking like, yeah, I can do that. Yeah, no problem. I can do that. I can do a bit of roofing. I can do a bit of, and what I found was that the churn rate they had on employment in the company that I was involved in over there was very high. And at the time I was thinking and saying, if they just let the guys out on site for a day, they'd fix this problem pretty quickly. And I'm really interested in this. I mean, what strategies have you seen companies come up with strategies like, a testing strategy or using social media strategy as any way to sort of help with that recruitment process? Because I mean, half the battle is recruitment step one, but then we got to retain them too.
Yeah, absolutely. So, sorry, what exactly is your question?
So the question being that we see companies using other strategies such as, say, social media, for example, i.e. promoting themselves as a good employer as a strategy to recruit and retain.
It's really funny that you say that, because that's the second part. What I was saying is that what I've just outlined there is a good process. The problem is that it only taps into those people who are actually actively looking for a job. So let's imagine that only 10% of the carpenters out there in your world are looking for a job. Some of those will be looking for a job because there's a reason they're looking for a job, and we wouldn't want to employ them potentially. So, and this is the same problem that we had in companies I've worked with. It's how do you get to the people who are happy where they are and they're performing and they're doing a really good job. You don't really want to just be talking to the people who are active on the job market. You include them, but you don't want to leave it just to them. So this is something that we're just doing at the moment. We started it about 2 months ago, and it's the concept of developing in corporate language an employer brand. And we're looking at using social media to do it, Instagram. So most companies, I think all of them, use social media to get more customers, to communicate to their consumer brand, but that's often not their challenge. That at the moment, construction's booming in London and the southeast, absolutely booming. I've got clients that are getting 10 inquiries a day for extensions and loft conversions. That's not the problem. The problem is the lack of resource, the lack of people. And so what we're trialing at the moment is to develop a campaign to do exactly that. But it starts with take a good hard look at yourself before you even start putting an advert out there. So what is good about working for you? And what I would say is go and talk to the people who've been with you a long time. Don't try and second guess it, because often what you'll find is what they say might be different to what you think it is. So for example, a big thing in the trades is if their employer pays them on time. That's a big thing. Now that would be a given in corporate land. You wouldn't even question it. You wouldn't even think of it. But in the trade industries, that's not always the case, that they're paid on time by their employer. So if you are an employer that always pays on time, you need to shout about that, So go and find out from the people who've been with you a long time, who are good, what is it that they enjoy about working for you? And also, what else could you be doing? So I often get asked, what's the best way of doing a bonus scheme, or, should I give them a pay rise? I tend to say, have a basic competitive salary, pay as much as what you are comfortable with. do annual appraisals. Again, it sounds quite corporate, but if they're employed, can't do this with contractors, obviously, have it performance related. But I think the most effective thing that works in this industry is some sort of profit share scheme.
Yes.
So doing it on a quarterly basis where you have a target. I'm a big believer in sharing the figures with the team. A lot of people are sometimes nervous about doing that, but I think if you trust them and you show that trust, they appreciate it and they understand how much it costs to run a business.
Can you explain that one? Because I've seen it done. I've seen it done very, very well. Just for those that maybe listen that haven't come across profit sharing, could you explain what it looks like and the benefits of it?
So there's various different ways of doing it, but generally I would say have your quarterly target, share it with them. So say to the guys, right, we're anticipating turning over, I don't know, 200,000 in the next quarter. And from that, we're anticipating making £40,000 profit. Anything that we make in addition to that, so let's say we make 50,000, that additional 10,000, either all of it or a proportion of it goes into a pot, and it's then shared out equally amongst the team. Now, you can get, if you want to sort of have two tiers, so your more senior people get a bigger chunk, you can. There's different ways of doing it. My advice is keep it simple, keep it so that people can understand it, and share with people how the company is doing month on month. So the idea is that should drive a certain behavior. So you're wanting people to work harder. By that I mean not necessarily more hours or anything, but to treat the company as if it were their own. So to think about wastage, make the right decisions for the company as well as themselves, so they feel part of something. And then because they're part of something and they're being communicated with regularly around how they're doing and how the company's doing, they then get a slice of that pie. I think if you leave it any more than a quarter, like every 6 months or once a year, it's too long. People lose sight of it. And every month is, in the construction industry, it's too topsy-turvy sometimes. So a quarter, 3 months gives you it's probably about the right time scale.
I absolutely love that because retaining staff, it's very easy in this industry to have our heads turned by, a shiny looking company over here that maybe might give me some better overtime rates, and, that might, or maybe some, a bigger size company where there's climb the ladder opportunities. But a lot of the time, creating that culture whereby I'm motivated to be a part of something, like I'm actually a part of this and we're all in this together type of culture, I think is brilliant. And one thing one word that just sticks out there as you're describing that was creating these disciplines, whereby the first thing that comes to my head, 5 o'clock is our knock off time. We're on job with Mr. and Mrs. Joneses. We don't expect people to do overtime for free, but you know what? If we kick on till 6 here, we're going to get this done, and that's going to affect my quarterly margin. And that's the first thing, creating little disciplines across your team, which could make a huge difference to that team, not having to go back to that job at 8 o'clock the following morning and be finished by 11. And what happens to that day? Yeah, I absolutely love that, because the next piece of this is how to create a stronger, more reliable team. We've probably just touched on one of real quality strategies there, but I mean, to me that shouts out culture. I mean, how can companies, in your opinion, I suppose, how do companies go about creating stronger, more reliable team? Obviously profit share being one option. What else do you see out there?
So a lot of what we include, or some of the content that we include in our programs, comes from Stephen Covey. Don't know if you've come across him, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. Covey talks about the emotional bank account. So if you think about any kind of relationship, I mean, this is not just in a work context, any relationship that you have, think of it as an emotional bank account. So every time that person does something, so in this case, if we're getting into the heads of an employee here, every time your employer does something that you really appreciate, effectively they're putting a credit into that emotional bank account. Every time they do something that, sorry, are you still there, Kieran?
Yeah.
Frozen. Every time they do something that hacks you off, and that could be, they're unintentional, they don't realize, they take a debit out of that bank account. So the emotional bank account has to be in significant credit for people to, given your example there, stay beyond, treat it as if it's their own company, and actually enjoy working for their employer. This is what I mean about psychology. There's a lot of psychology involved in managing people, because you have to create that. And that's something that can't be switched on overnight. Some people have a natural ability to do it. Others have to learn how to do it. But there's so many different aspects to it. You know, one of the things we really encourage are monthly one-to-ones. Again, it might sound corporate, but how we communicate it is, look, this doesn't have to be, you know, suited and booted, sat in an office. In fact, I encourage them to say, just take them for breakfast for half an hour in the morning before they start work, or take them for a beer at the end of the day. Because if you sit down with each of your team for half an hour, 45 minutes once a month, I can guarantee you that will have a massive, massive impact on retention. Because if there is something that's troubling them, or there's something that they're doing that's troubling you, that gives you the forum to talk to them about it. So it nips it in the bud before it escalates and becomes a much bigger problem. Team socials, you know, taking the team out maybe once a quarter, or once a month. I mean, there's a client of mine that's coming to mind at the moment. He's got a construction company, and he gave exactly that example last week to me, where two guys, he didn't even know, he found out through one of the team, they'd stay till 11 o'clock at night to get the job done. They didn't tell him. And he found out, and he said, oh my God, you need to put that on your timesheet. And they went, no, it's all right. It's okay. You look after us. And he went, no, you must. But they were willing to do it, not tell him, and not even ask for any more money. Now, of course, he did pay them, but it's very a very good example that demonstrates the kind of culture that he has created. And he's done that because he's got a natural ability with people, but B, I think with the techniques that we teach, that's just taken it to a whole different level. So I remember a one-to-one he had with somebody recently that wasn't performing, and he said the old him would have gone in and, you know, sort of read the riot act and said, you know, pull your socks up, this can't continue. And it stopped him from doing that. And he started by just asking, you know, how are you? How are things going? And it all came out. I can't remember exactly what the problem was, but the poor guy had some you know, stuff going on in his life, and he was able to share it, and then they were able to kind of have the conversation and come to an agreement on how they were going to move forward. And this guy's now like one of his top performers. It's that, it doesn't always work obviously like that, but it's those kind of structures that enable these kinds of conversations to take place, which all of these things go towards creating a strong culture.
Yeah, I love that. I absolutely love that. And that's something we do here in our day to day with our own company, is asking questions to say to our staff, you might outgrow us someday, because your ambition might be just somewhere that we can't fulfill, but we'll help you get there. We'll help you get to the point. And should you need us to help you get to the next level of whatever journey you're on, we'll help you get there. And I think just being honest about that and saying, like, to shake hands, if an employee wants to shake hands and go and better himself and do better things, by all means do that. Yeah. But if we can help him get there, and as a, by the way, he's going to perform for us on his way to that, great. Everybody wins. This idea that we have to have employees forever doesn't. I don't subscribe to that one. We've skipped one, which was the how can I get more business one. Okay, so am I right in saying that this comes down to sales and marketing, or are you flipping that on its head and saying a lot of time more business is actually operational issues rather than sales and marketing?
It often is, and that's the first thing that we do is we do an exercise called the customer journey, where we map out from the point of inquiry all the way through to the job being complete. You know, where could it be better? Where are things getting stuck? Where are things not happening quick enough, and the customer might not be having the best experience? And then from there, we do something called, it sounds quite American, it is surprise and delight. And it's looking at all the different touch points with the customer and how can you wow them. And it doesn't mean to say spending money. It's how can you do something that is quite unexpected, where the customer is like, wow, that's a bit different. Because then in effect, what happens is people start talking. So they start talking to their friends and family around, this amazing company and what an amazing experience that they had, and that effectively becomes part of, not all of it, but part of your marketing. But if the customer experience, we do customer surveys, we measure it, if all of that is going well, then yes, you can then start to market. But the worst thing you can do, I think, is chuck a load of money at marketing if your operations aren't healthy, because all it does is it magnifies the problem. And I've seen this in large organizations as well. You've got to be very careful. It's like the accelerator and the brake of a car. You've got to know which one to press first. And then there's lots of other little things that you can do to increase conversion as well. So it's not just about getting more inquiries and leads, it's how you look after them, and some subtle things that you do along the way. One of the great things that I think it's quite clever is the top 10 tips booklet. I got it from an electrician about 8 years ago, before I even worked with trades. And he would go out to see a customer, get back in his van. He's obviously had quite a well-organized business because he was doing the quote in the van, but alongside the email to the customer, he would say something like this: dear Mrs. Smith, thank you for inviting in to quote for you today. Please find attached a top 10 tips booklet should you choose to use it or not. And in that booklet is some genuine advice around things to consider when employing a tradesperson coming into your home. Just really quite clever, because that's giving you something for nothing without expecting anything in return. It's reciprocity. But it positions that person as being credible and knowing their stuff.
So. It's smart. And as was one of the, we obviously work with a lot of companies, and they ask questions around myself as why do the podcast? Why are you blogging? Why don't and we just genuinely want to know why we would put so much effort into trying to. And I think as a strategy, if you don't look at it from a click conversion and a funnel activity type of, you just say, well, if you genuinely want to put out something that you think that help your customer, I think that's a good thing to do. And if that's the strategy, and I think that's coming back to, if a result of that is they think these guys are all right and we'd like to do business with them, well, then that's great. And if it's not, there's going to be others. Absolutely. And that's our take on that. But that's similar to what you're saying there with your electrician guy. I like it. I think it's smart. This is, I love this, the work-life balance thing. It's so subjective in my opinion, this particular one. Because I don't personally believe in work-life balance, and that's just a personal opinion, but a lot of people do. When a company, I'm really interested in this bit, but when a company comes to you and they talk about work-life balance, what is it that they're trying to achieve?
Well, they don't tend to use that term, as it were. What I tend to hear is things like, I'm just sick of not seeing my family enough, sick of chasing my tail. That might be my language, but you get the picture. I'm sick of just feeling disorganized and not. So it's stress. It's the amount of hours that they find they're working, but it's the stress that goes along with it. That tends to be what I hear.
Interesting. Because a lot of the time when I speak, and I still got lots of friends that are running businesses, and a lot of the time I just think it's. I use a sports analogy. I'm crazy about sports. So when I think about a team, they go hell for leather for whatever it is, 90 minutes or whatever sport we're playing, and then they rest, and then they go back and they go training, and then they go again. And that's the way I sort of view it as business owner. I think you just got to take time outs, and then that's generally. But balance for me, I think balance sort of suggests that we're going to take it. We're going to how can I put words around this? What's in my head when I think about work-life balance? Balance for me probably suggests that we're not in we haven't got a great intensity, I suppose, probably the best way I can put it. And when I think about it, I'm saying we just need to reduce the intensity, relax, and we go again. And for me, for work-life balance is we've just got to be doing things that we're happy doing. If you're really happy running this business, just rest, like take some rest and go again, take some rest and go again. That's my sort of, anyway, my thoughts on this. Is all this covered? Because I see we're doing the virtual business school for trades. Could you touch on the virtual business school for trades and what's included? I mean, is what we talk about here today, is that included in the school?
Everything that we do is underpinned by something called the build system. So when I wrote the book, I had to kind of take a step back and get it out of my head what I was doing with clients. And I came up with this framework called the build system, which is an acronym that stands for business planning, understanding your strengths, implementing systems and processes, love your customer, and develop and delegate. So that underpins both private programs and the academy, and it's in the book. So I've forgotten your question now. Oh, is it in the in terms of work-life balance? Yeah, I mean, everything, it would come into systems. And I think, just coming back to your point there, it is work-life balance can mean something different to each of us, can't it? And I think, of course, you have to work hard to have a successful business. Working hard might not necessarily mean excessive hours. But we need, it's working, it's a bit of a cliche, working smarter, not harder. It's making the right decisions. It's investing in yourself. It's getting a mentor. It's doing a business development program, whatever it is, working smarter. I think what we see is not just people working hard, it's going a bit too far so that work is taking up all of their lives. So they're never taking that rest. They're never taking time off to have a holiday because they feel they can't. They're not even taking evenings and weekends off. They're using the evenings and weekends to do paperwork because they don't feel they can afford to get anybody to help. And the reason why they think they can't afford it, is because they're judging the success of their business by what's in their bank account, which is very, very dangerous. Now, it's through no fault of their own. One of the questions I often get asked is, why are these issues? And I think, well, I would have the same issue if somebody asked me to go and fit a boiler or to build a cabinet or to wire a house, God forbid, because no one's ever shown me how to do it. And it's the same. If you're a tradesperson, you've been trained in how to do your trade, but nobody's trained you how to run a business. So you started off doing your trade, you do it really well, you get recommended, you start taking other people on, and lo and behold, now you're no longer a carpenter or an electrician or a plumber. You are a business owner of a plumbing, electrical, carpentry business. That's the distinction. And so you haven't been trained to do it. And that's what our programs do, is train you how to run a business using the systems and processes from the big boys. It just happens to be a different industry.
Yeah, no, I love that. I mean, a lot of the times it's accidental business owner, excellent on the tools, decided for some reason, maybe I just want to drop the kids at school in the morning and therefore I'd like to work for myself. Maybe it's, I want to take a bit more summer holidays because I want to spend more time doing whatever. Yeah. So I'm going to work for myself. And, I'm now, or the industry has gone through a slow patch and now I need to go and work for myself. But there's a set of circumstances. It generally don't, from myself, my own experience going through learning my trade, saying, I'm definitely going to run my own business here someday. So a lot of time they can be accidental, which is why they should go and look at something like the virtual business school for trades. Can you talk about the virtual business school for trade? When does that kick off and how do companies go about getting involved in something like that?
So it's called the Build and Grow Academy. We launched at the end of January, and then we had another intake in the spring. We've got an intake the first week of every month now. So we're open this week as it happens. It's available. All of the information about the program is available on the website, which is evolve and grow. That's AND, evolveandgrowcoaching.com. So there's a brochure on there. There's all the information to sign up and
what would I expect, Allison, if I enroll? What would I expect to, like, what would be the main benefits and what would I expect to achieve when I go through the program?
So I'll come on to the benefits in a moment. How it's delivered is it's over 12 months. So it's kind of drip feeding. Each week, each member gets a video and a workbook, and then we have 2 live calls a month. The benefits in a nutshell, it's kind of what I was saying there. It's teaching you how to run a business, a trades business.
Yeah.
I mean, you could also take it into any industry really, because it's covering the key elements of business planning, the numbers, the 7 modules basically. So we start with the 3-year vision, then we get into the numbers. Often we find opportunities there that pay for the whole program, because 90% of the time they're perhaps not pricing correctly, or there's wastage in the business. I can tell straight away by looking at a set of accounts. We use something called common sizing, if things are in the right place or not, running correctly. So it's not about training them to be an accountant, but it is training you in the basics and which numbers to track in your business that are really critical. Then we get into the people, so all the stuff that I've talked about there in terms of recruitment and building a team, the systems, which could be a piece of software, but it could also be how to document or that you can train others and measure their performance. And then we finish off with marketing and then sales.
Love it. I love it starts with vision, and because a lot of people take that piece out of the equation, and if you don't know what it is we're actually trying to achieve, how do we make a plan to get there?
And why, actually, that's the first question. That the first video is all about why you're doing what you're doing.
Yeah, I love that.
So take a step back, and actually, it sounds a bit hippie, but I say, go for a walk in the woods, take some time out, watch. I'm a big fan of Simon Sinek. Don't know if you've come across him. Why?
Yeah.
So I say, watch that video, go for a walk, and just take a step back and think, right, why am I doing this? Because you don't want to get to retirement or your deathbed and go, God, I wish I'd done something completely different.
Yeah.
So what are you doing this for? What's your bigger purpose?
It's brilliant. Where can people learn more about that particular opportunity, the book, Evolve, your podcast as well, which we didn't get into much, but where can people sort of find out more about that?
So everything is on the website, evolveandgrowcoaching.com. The podcast show is on there, the Build and Grow Academy. All of the information and the ability to sign up is on there. The book is available on Amazon, Build and Grow, How to Go from Tradesperson to Managing Director in the construction and trade industries. So I think that covers everything. Yeah.
Brilliant. And we'll get some links and get them into the show notes as well.
What I should have also mentioned, Kieran, as well, is on the website, there's a free scorecard, a digital scorecard, so people can go on and complete it. It takes about 5 minutes to complete, 20 questions, and you'll get a score of how your business is what you need to focus on first in order to grow it.
I've done it, and I actually should mention it. I actually put myself back into my contracting shoes, which would have been close to, I don't know, maybe 10 years ago. And I said, at that point in time, where would I have been? And I done it. I found it really, really interesting, actually. So I would recommend people to go there, and definitely we'll put the link in the show notes, and people can go straight there. But it's really interesting to see sort of where you think you might be, and then where after putting some information into the test where you actually looks like you might be. So definitely would recommend that one. Allison, you've been very good with your time. Really appreciate you coming on.
Thank you. Really enjoyed it.